Hi muggles and wizards alike, welcome to my hot mess of a channel. Today I should be filming something completely different, but instead I really wanted to talk about Colleen Hoover. She's my favorite romance author, like out of every romance book I've ever read. She is my #1 favorite. She's got a buttload of books out. I don't even know how many. I didn't count them beforehand. I don't have all of them. I have almost all of them, but I still need like a few more. But this is them, the ones I do have. And I put them in publishing order. I just want to talk to you about how amazing she is and how amazing her stories are. So let's get started. First is Slammed. Now, this is the first book of hers that I ever read, and it's also the first one she ever published. She published it, I think, in 2012, and it's her first trilogy. And I know usually when you think of trilogy, you think of like Hunger Games and like dystopian novels and fantasy, but this is just romance. It's like nothing fantasy at all. So I thought that was really cool. This was the first romance trilogy I've ever read. But basically, this girl named Lakin, her and her brother Kel, who's 9, and her mom moved from Texas to Michigan. And their dad just died, and they have to move for unknown reasons, unknown to her. She thinks they're moving for a different reason. And she meets the boy next door, and he's amazing, of course. But then something really big and really bad happens. It's like a big twist. And you're like, no, because they realize like they cannot be together because it's completely wrong for them to be together. But of course, that doesn't necessarily stop them. And it's just so good. And then another big twist happens, and you'll cry your eyes out. I bawled in this book.
Slammed. New York Times best-selling author Colleen Hoover writes a romantic duet novel about a family shattered by a sudden death that leads to two unlikely lovers forming an intricate bond. Following the unexpected death of her father, 18-year-old Lakin is forced to be the rock for both her mother and her younger brother. Outwardly, she appears resilient and tenacious, but inwardly, she's losing hope. One young man brings change to all of this. After moving across the country, Lakin meets her attractive 21-year-old neighbor who has an intriguing passion for slams. Within days of their introduction, Will and Lakin form an intense connection, leaving Lakin with a renewed sense of hope. Not long after, a heart-stopping first date. They are slammed to the core when a shocking revelation forces their new relationship to a sudden halt. Daily interactions become impossibly painful as they struggle to find a balance between the feeling that pulls them together and the forces that tear them apart.
And then the second one is a continuation, obviously, that's what a series means, but it's just as heartfelt, just as many twists.
In the second book in the Slammed series by New York Times best-selling author Colleen Hoover, Lakin and Will's relationship has endured through hardships, heartache, and a cruel twist of fate, further solidifying the fact that they both belong together. But the two lovers could not have expected that things that brought them together may ultimately be the things that tear them apart. Their connection is on the brink of being destroyed forever, and it will take an extraordinary amount of willpower to keep their love afloat. Lakin is left questioning the very foundation on which her relationship with Will was built. Will is left questioning how he can prove his love for a girl who can't seem to stop carving pumpkins. Upon finding the answers that may bring peace back into their relationship, the couple comes across an even greater challenge, one that could change not only their lives, but the lives of everyone who depends on them.
You kind of want to take the main character, Lakin. You want to shake her in this one. I just want to be like, Lakin, you're being really stupid the whole time. I'm like, ugh. But anyway, I don't want to tell you exactly why, because it'll give stuff away.
But this girl is basically, it's obviously a continuation of Point of Retreat, but it's also really cool because the whole time it flashes back to Slammed in Will's point of view. Because Slammed is all in Lakin's point of view. Point of Retreat switches back and forth between both of their point of views. And then this girl goes back and tells the beginning of the story from Will's point of view. So it's really cool. It's amazing. As far as Colleen Hoover's writing goes, you can tell she's like just starting out. You can tell that this is her first book, because as she continues, like, she gets so much better. These were still amazing, and she still did a great job, but you can tell, like, she just keeps improving, and they just keep, I don't know how she has all these stories in her head, but she's amazing, and she makes them all come together in a crazy way that you would never even think of. I don't know where she gets her ideas, but she's like a little idea factory. But they're very good.
I can't actually read the back of this because it's a total spoiler. But this is the last one, so after you read if you read the first two, though, you're obviously going to want to read the third, because you're not going to want it to end.
Okay, next, I believe she published Hopeless. So there's Hopeless and Losing Hope, which sound really terrible, but they're not. They're so good. You'll also cry your eyes out in that one because of all the crap that the main character Sky goes through. It's really sad, but also really good and heartfelt. So basically, Hopeless and Losing Hope are the same story. It's just one is in Sky's point of view and one is in, what is the main character's name? It's Dean Holder. I'm so dumb. Hopeless is in Sky's point of view, and Losing Hope is in Holder's point of view. And it sounds kind of like redundant to have two whole separate books in different point of views, but the same thing. But it's not at all, because it's basically like a totally other story. Because the only thing that's the same that you've already read is when they're together. But it's like completely different, separate lives, and you get all their thoughts while everything's happening together. And it's fantastic. Like, I love it when authors do that. Because I don't like it. I don't know if you guys have ever read The Edge of Never, but I really like that book. But a lot of times she'd switch from chapter to chapter and switch point of views, but she'd basically have the same events happening, but in each point of view, and that gets redundant to me. Because, like, yeah, I'd like to know what they were each thinking in that same situation, but I don't know. I'd rather have two separate books about it. That's just my personal preference. But those books are really good. And then the next one that comes out is Finding Cinderella. I have it on my Nook, but I haven't read it. I have no idea why. I need to. I have no idea why I haven't read it, but anyway. And then after Finding Cinderella, I believe was Maybe Someday.
But Maybe Someday, I can't decide if Maybe Someday or this other book I'm about to talk about is my favorite of hers. But Maybe Someday, the main character is deaf, and as you guys know, I'm going to school to be a sign language interpreter. I fell completely in love with Ridge. So the main characters' names are Sydney and Ridge.
At 22 years old, Sydney is enjoying a great life. She's in college, working a steady job, in love with her wonderful boyfriend Hunter, and rooming with her best friend Tori. But everything changes when she discovers that Hunter is cheating on her, and she's forced to decide what her next move should be. Soon, Sydney finds herself captivated by her mysterious and attractive neighbor Ridge. She can't take her eyes off him or stop listening to the passionate way he plays his guitar every evening out on his balcony. And there's something about Sydney that Ridge can't ignore either. They soon find themselves needing each other in more ways than one, a passionate tale of friendship, betrayal, and romance. Maybe Someday will immerse readers in Sydney's tumultuous world from the very first page.
Another really cool thing about Maybe Someday is that because Ridge is a musician, there's actually this guy named Peter Griffith who has made a whole soundtrack to go along with the songs that him and Sydney write in the book. So basically you get to listen to their songs in an acoustic version, and they're beautiful. I have the whole album on my phone, and you can listen to them on iTunes or YouTube. They're all on YouTube. It's just so cool because I've never read a book that's like interactive like that. My mom actually just finished reading this one, and we were talking about it this morning, so I think that's why I wanted to do a video on it, because Colleen is just fresh in my head.
So after Maybe Someday is a book called Maybe Not. It's not really, it's kind of like a little continuation, but it's mainly about two of not the main two characters in this book, but their friends. And it's really cute, but I don't have it. I did read it. I read it online. I don't know how I read it online.
Ugly Love is the next one. So Ugly Love is how do I explain Ugly Love? It's naughty.
It's naughty. So it's not exactly love at first sight for Tate Collins when she meets the tormented and secretive Miles Archer. They wouldn't even go so far as to consider themselves friends. The only thing Tate and Miles have in common is a mutual physical attraction that can't be denied. Once their desires are out in the open, they realize they might have stumbled on the perfect no-strings arrangement. He isn't looking for love, and she doesn't have time for it either. So that leaves just one thing: sex. What they've got could be surprisingly satisfying, as long as Tate can stick to the two rules Miles has for her.
Never ask about his past and don't expect a future.
They think they can handle it, but everything is different when real emotions start to change the equation.
Ugly Love is another one that will completely tear you apart. It'll make you cry so hard. I bawled my eyes out. I mean, that doesn't say much. I bawl in almost every movie, or every book. But, it's so good. And it's kind of, like, mysterious because the whole time you're, like, trying to figure out what Miles' big secret is. And, every other chapter is hit in his point of view, but it's not in the present at all. It's in the past. So bit by bit, you get, like, what he went through that made him the way he is, basically. And it's so good.
I know I say that about all of them, but it's because it's true. Colleen is freaking amazing.
And her name, like, all her names are cool. But this, Tate, I love Tate's name. Her name's Elizabeth Tate Collins, but she goes by Tate. And I just love it.
I'm probably gonna name my kid that one day. Disclaimer.
Alright, our list is dwindling. Next on the publication order is... Actually, I think it might be Never Never. Let me check. Nope. Confess first.
So Confess.
I don't know if you guys have heard of the show Confess, but they just made a show about it. And, it has the girl who plays Daphne in Switch That Birth. I don't remember her real name. I want to say it's like Katie something, but I'm not positive. But I wasn't a huge fan of the show. They did change some things, and I like Daphne in Switch That Birth. I think she's a great actress in that, but I did not like the acting in the Confess show. And I hate to say that because I was so excited for it, and I'm so excited that Colleen Hoover got one of her books made into a show because I'm just such a huge fan of hers, but I just wasn't that big of a fan of the show. But I know a lot of people who were, so it could just be me that I'm too picky, but I don't know. I just felt like it was really... I felt like I was watching a high school play the whole time, but that's just me. Confess is amazing, though. It says...
Auburn Reed has lost everything important to her. In her fight to rebuild her shattered life, she has her goals in sight and there is no room for mistakes. But when she walks into a Dallas art studio in search of a job, she doesn't expect to find a deep attraction to the enigmatic artist who works there, Owen Gentry. For once, Auburn takes a chance and puts her heart in control, only to discover that Owen is keeping a major secret from coming out. The magnitude of his past threatens to destroy everything Auburn loves most, and the only way to get her life back on track is to cut Owen out of it. To save their relationship, all Owen needs to do is confess, but in this case, the confession could be much more destructive than the actual sin.
So just because I don't like the Confess show doesn't mean that you won't, so please still check it out.
All you have to do is to download the Go90 app, and the app is free and so is the show. Like, it's completely free, which is really cool. And then just search for Confess. And it pops right up, and you can immediately stream it. And it has the whole first season on it.
Okay. Now, after Confess, in her publishing order is the book Never Never, and it was published in like 3 different installments, but they're really short. They're almost like short stories, I think. But it's the closest thing Colleen has to fantasy books. They're really weird, but they're still really good. And you're definitely really interested in like what's happening because it's kind of crazy. It's set in New Orleans. So you already have like the set of like magic and witchcraft kind of, but it's not at all like that at all. Basically, these
2 people, they keep losing their memory at the same time each day, and they don't know who they are, but everyone else around them does, and you don't know why that keeps happening. It's not like vampires or witches or anything like that. It's kind of like a little bit of voodoo, but
it's really weird, but really good. It's hard to explain. So different than anything else she's ever done. But next is November 9. This book
and Maybe Someday are like tied for my favorites, along with slams, because I really love slams too. These three, I guess. They're just so good. How do I choose? How do I choose?
There are so many different twists and turns. There's so many plot twists that will just make you, like, it'll blow your mind. It's so good. I don't know how she comes up with these ideas. I have author, like, envy of her because I don't know how does she write so good? I love her.
Fallon meets Ben, an aspiring novelist, the day of her scheduled cross-country move. Their untimely attraction leads them to spend Fallon's last day in LA together, and her eventful life becomes the creative inspiration Ben has always sought for his novel. Over time, and amidst the various relationships and tribulations of their own separate lives, they continue to meet on the same date every year, until one day Fallon becomes unsure if Ben has been telling her the truth or fabricating a perfect reality for the sake of the ultimate plot twist. Can Ben's relationship with Fallon and simultaneously his novel be considered a love story if it ends in heartbreak?
Read it, read it, read it.
The main character, Fallon, was this like aspiring actress, and she got onto this like kids show, and she was doing really well, and her dad is a total jerk, but he's her acting coach, and that's like the only thing that they ever got along like with, and they bonded over was acting, because he was an actor too. And she was doing really well, but her parents got divorced when she was little, and she had texted her dad one night and told her that she was going to be spending the night, and it was the same night that he accidentally caught his house on fire, and she was inside, and he forgot about her. And she's completely scarred from like half of her body. And so they pulled her contract with her show, and she hasn't acted since. And of course she blames the dad, but that all happened on November 9th. So basically the story starts out, she's meeting her dad for lunch to basically tell him that she's moving to New York to try her hand at Broadway. And he is telling her basically that she needs to give up on her dreams because she's so scarred and doesn't have the tools it takes to be an actress anymore. And
Benton James Kessler, he is in the booth over, and he's hearing all of this, and he's like, this is bullcrap. So he slides into the booth and pretends to be Fallon's boyfriend. He's like, hey babe, sorry I'm late. And she's just like, what the heck? But she plays along, and basically he sits there and defends her and points out all of these stars that also have scars, and basically just sticks it to the dad, and it's fantastic. And the dad leaves all mad, and they end up spending the rest of the day together. And of course they're like super attracted to each other, but she's about to move that night. She flies to New York, and she doesn't want to like start anything because she wants to be able to completely put her all into her New York trip. So they decide to block each other on all social media, and they don't have each other's phone number or anything. And they're just going to meet back up at the restaurant that they met at the next year on November 9. And that's how the story starts. It's so amazing. It's such a cool concept. And Benton James Kessler is adorable, and he's an author, and he's just like...
That's another great thing about Colleen's books, is they always start out super interesting. Like, the only one that starts out a little bit slow, but not really even, is Slam. But like I said, that was her first book, and that's why. But even so, like, after the first chapter, I was hooked. But like, Maybe Someday, it starts out with, basically with Sydney punching her best friend in the face. I mean, it's just stuff, oh, I dropped it. Sorry. Basically, it's just stuff like that, and it makes you immediately just hooked.
It Ends With Us. It's her most recent. It Ends With Us is a really important book to read. In all of her books, her writing style is just like set apart from any other I've ever read. It just completely captivates you and makes you know the character. Like, you are the character. Like, it just grabs you. It's fantastic. And of course, all her books do that. And this one was no different, but it was a little bit more serious than any of her other books. It made me look at something that I had looked at for one way my whole life. It made me completely do a 180 and actually see what it's like. Like when people are abused and like your boyfriend hits you and stuff, I have always thought, oh my God, like I would never put up with that. And this book completely makes you realize that maybe you would. And it gives you a completely new perspective. It made it to where you were kind of justifying their actions because you knew them, and it was kind of like you loved them because she did. And it's just a really neat, eye-opening book.
Lily hasn't always had it easy, but that's never stopped her from working hard for the life she wants. She's come a long way from the small town in Maine where she grew up. She graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. So when she feels a spark with a gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, maybe even a little arrogant. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. But Ryle's complete aversion to relationships is disturbing. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corrigan, her first love, and a link to the past that she left behind. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. With this bold and deeply personal novel, Colleen Hoover delivers a heart-wrenching story that breaks exciting new ground for her as a writer. It Ends With Us is an unforgettable tale of love that comes at an ultimate price.
Okay, last but not least is Too Late. And technically, when I looked up all the publishing dates, this one wasn't in it, and I'll tell you why. So basically, Colleen Hoover has a Wattpad account, and whenever she was writing all the other books, she would basically take breaks and write this story. But she never planned to publish it. It was just kind of like a fun thing that she did, and all her fans were obviously like, hey, please continue it. And so she would like add chapters, just for fun, to blow off steam, to help with her writer's block, stuff like that. And she finished it, and everyone was like, please publish it. And she did. But this is much different than any of my other books I have here. Because look what's on the inside cover. It's signed by Colleen Hoover, and it's addressed to me. I ordered one for me and my sister because she was having like this big deal, and because I follow her on social media, so she was like, comment your name and buy it now, and then I'll like sign it and everything. J'ai ponché in hands. I'm so excited. It's not my prized possession.
Fallon will go through hell and back for those she loves, and she does, every single day. After finding herself stuck in a relationship with the dangerous and morally corrupt Asa Jackson, Sloane will do whatever it takes to get by until she's able to find a way out. Nothing will get in her way. Nothing except Carter. Sloane is the best thing to ever happen to Asa, and if you ask Asa, he'd say he's the best thing to ever happen to Sloane. Despite Sloane's disapproval of Asa's sinister lifestyle, he does exactly what he needs to do in order to stay a step ahead in his business. He also does exactly what he needs to do in order to stay a step ahead of Sloane. Nothing will get in his way. Nothing except Carter.
Plus, the cover's so shiny and it's like so smooth. In like a glossy kind of way. Cover of Ugly Love, like the water makes sense when you finally finish it. I was like, why is there water? That's weird. But it makes sense. And Confess, the paint obviously makes sense because Owen, beautiful Owen, is an artist. And Slammed. Slammed is actually like, it's poetry. That's what, doing a slam, it's like performing poetry. That's why there's a stool. And then Point of Retreat, the butterfly. Didn't realize what significance the butterfly has until you read it, but it's hilarious. And This Girl is just cliche, It Ends With Us. Lily has her own flower shop. That's why the cover has flower. I'm pretty sure it's a lily too, which is funny. And November 9, obviously calendar.
So that's all of my Colleen Hoover books. I'll link them all down below, and I'll link you to her website because she's always having like fun things going on. But you should also follow her on Snapchat because she's hilarious. I have such a woman crush on her. I love you, Colleen. I'm sorry I didn't like your show Confess. Don't hate me. Anyway, I love these books and you should read them because they're really fast. They're all like 300 pages and they're really fast reads, especially if you like go on an airplane or to the beach or a girls trip or something. They're just great. For any time, any location, and anywhere, ever. I love her, and I love these books. So go and read them all. Bye. I low-key look like Miss Undermeyer in the Lizzie McGuire movie.